Hello, BookTube. I'm back with another top 10 list. I've already done my top 10 favorite singers and a top 10 favorite songs, but I missed honorable mention for my top 10 favorite songs, so we'll get to that first of all. But today, I am doing my top 10 favorite albums. Now, to go back to top favorite song, an honorable mention. That would be Good Old Boys Like Me by Dan Williams. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what year that came out, but that would be an honorable mention anyway. Uh, and so today, for top 10 albums, the honorable mention is Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull, that was put out in 1972. It's a two album record. And it was done as sort of a parody type concept album because they were, I think, previous albums, or at least one, if I remember right. The critic says, "Oh, they're doing concept albums," and the band didn't like it, or specifically Ian Anderson didn't like that, so he thought he would do a concept album, but as a parody of a concept album. And this is supposed to be, it's in the fictional world of the album that an 8-year-old boy, Gerald Bostock, I think it is, and the songs are it's a poem of his songs, and it's got sort of newspaper clippings and everything as if this is all real, but everything was written, or the lyrics were written by Ian Anderson. I just love this album, but it didn't quite make my top 10. It did, then it didn't, then it did, then it didn't. So it's definitely an honorable mention, like all the honorable mentions are. They're ones that are just, for one reason or another, just got nudged out just slightly. And again, but as usual, this list is not in order of my favorites from 10 to 1. This will be in order of when the albums came out. Now, the interesting thing is, all but two are were in vinyl originally. Even though I've got most of them on CD now, and some sort of anniversary editions that have extended. But okay, let's go to the first one. And okay, and again, like what I'm trying to stick to, and with all these ones here, are I'm trying to stick to more popular music. Like I might do a top 10 classical possibly, or something like that, or baroque, or polyphony type stuff. But anyway, like I didn't want to put that stuff in there because it's so different, so pop more or less. And for the singers, I did go back into the 20s. I dipped in 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s. Maybe not 80s. I don't know if there was any singers from the 80s particularly there. But anyway, the idea is to not be too... because I like music from all over pretty well. There's only a few things that I don't like, and I would argue that it's not music, even though it's classed as music. But everything, I like music. I like most genres of music from every period, of every type, from every place. There's always something that I found that I go, oh, I like that. I may not like a whole bunch of it, but I like that. You know. So yes, but so this one is not too much of that sort of peripheral stuff, more sort of, I guess, 20th century pop, I guess, would be the best thing. Rock and country and that type of thing, I guess. So okay, let's get to the list. Dreamboat Annie, 1975 by Heart. This is just a fabulous album. Nancy Wilson playing guitar on, like, Crazy on You. The live version of that, where she's doing the really long introduction on the acoustic, is just mesmerizing. And what's her sister's name? oh, I can't remember. I'm blanking, but the singer, her voice is so powerful, and this album just has so many good songs on it. Like and that's the thing. Every one of these albums have songs. Like every song I like. There's some that I like more, but it's not that there's two or three songs off here that I like. I like everything off the album, and I can listen to them endlessly, and that's another reason. And Heart, Dreamboat Annie is definitely that. You know, Crazy on You, Dreamboat Annie. It just the songs go on there, and they will if you're on repeat on a CD. Then the next is Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, 1977. What can I say with this? Like the guitar work, the songs, the lyrics, and the relationships that they had while they were making this, and just putting it into the music, and the emotion and the hatred that there is at times towards somebody else in the band. It's just marvelous. And Fleetwood Mac had been around for many years, and they've gone through so many permeations. But this one just, it melded. So good. And then we stay with 1977. Well, we actually have three in 1977 here. And I've tried to put them, I think, in order of when they were released. But the second 77 one is Running on Empty by Jackson Browne. Again, a fabulous album. I love the album cover. It's basically they're on the road, and everything's recorded on the road. Either on the bus, you can hear the bus, change gears, on stage, behind stage, on in hotel rooms, everywhere. And I love because if I remember right, the album cover, I should have looked at it again to make sure, but it's got like a drum kit and everything sitting on a road, and it's a long panorama. And I always remember this because I don't know if anybody remembers, oh, excuse me, the Mark and Mindy show. But on the inside of her apartment, on the right hand side of her door, she had a framed picture of Jackson Browne's Running on Empty. I'm sure that was it, and I see it in every episode. So just so many good songs like Cocaine, the Loadout, Rosie. It just goes on. Just every song is fabulous, and the nature of it being like recorded on a bus, that you can hear the gear changing and revving of the engine and the wheels going by. It just adds all this other stuff to it that makes it something special. Then we go to, which was it was on here, one of my favorite songs was from the next album from 1977, and that's "A Farewell to Kings" by Rush. It's just a fabulous album, and just every song is great because he drew. Neil Peart did the lyrics, and they're just fabulous. Like there's Cinderella Man that's based on Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, Frank Capra film. What else? We've got Xanadu, which was sort of based on Coleridge's Rhyme. Is it Rhyme of the Ancient Man? Oh, I'm blanking now. Oh God. Anyway, it was based on a Coleridge poem, and just this other one's like Cygnus X1 is sort of like a science fiction type thing, but with names pulled from the name of the ship is Rocinante, which is Don Quixote's horse, and clearly, I think it's pretty clear that whoever wrote the two that wrote the Expanse series, and they called the ship Rocinante, they must have been a Rush fan. I'm sure of it. I haven't found anything out about that. But why else would you name another ship called the Rocinante? Simple as that. And then we move to 1978 to City by Jerry Rafferty. Oh, what else can I say about this? Such an intricate album, and the lyrics and everything. the city song, down the line, Baker Street especially. Oh, just fabulous. Things just and the lyrics are so evocative, and the sound is evocative as well, and it's just and yeah, it's just fabulous. And then we move on to, now we're getting into the 80s, which is kind of weird because, well, I'll explain sort of this in a little bit, but it's 1981. It's a double album set again, like Thick as a Brick, and it's called The Innocent Age by Dan Fogelberg. It's such a fabulous album. The writing, the music, it's sort of soft listening, easy listening in some ways. There's like the leader of the band and the Same Old Lang Syne song are so fabulous, and he used what was it now? Thomas Wolfe's album, not album, novel for part of it. Oh, I'm blanking on the name, but a Thomas Wolfe, not Look Homeward, but another novel of his, and a lot of inspiration from that, and that's where like a lot of these albums have inspiration in books, and that could be a very interesting thing. Yeah, just thinking of that could be a very interesting thing to talk about, the inspiration, the book inspiration for certain albums, and delve into that. If anybody be interested in that, do let me know in the comments, because I might be interested in doing that. I don't know if anybody else has, but if anybody else wants to do it too, just feel free, because I'm sure we won't pick the same albums to delve into that, to the literary aspects of songwriting. Then we go to 1982 with Nebraska by Bruce Springsteen. I always liked Bruce Springsteen until he got a little too pop maybe, but then he went back to sort of his roots. A lot of people love him and a lot of people don't like him, but I do like him. Nebraska was so good. It's so bleak. It's just so perfect for the 80s, the recession of the 80s. People who lived through the recession, and even in Canada, and it was amazing that, 10 years later, driving through these areas in sort of, northern United States, like in Michigan, areas, or even around New Jersey where he was, but a lot of these areas, and they were still in 1991, 92, they were still depressed. Like, it's just empty factories with tumbleweeds blowing by that have been sitting there since they closed in the 80s, and it just has that feel to it. Like, My Father's House is so powerful, The Mansion on the Hill, and just everything. The song Nebraska is so great, but it's bleak. It's a very, very bleak album, but it's so good. Then we go to also 1982, and I'm not sure, I couldn't find out the release date of this one, the exact date in the year, so I put it as second. And that's Scatterlings by Jaluka, 1982, a South African band. Headed up the singer Johnny Clegg, and he and this was all during the time of apartheid as well, and he loved Zulu music, the culture, and that was his friends, and that's what he played music with, and that sensibility is infused into this album and everything else that he ever did. The sort of title song really resonates with me, The Scatterlings of Africa, because this was the time, 1982 was the time that I really decided in getting into learning history and, ancient history, but also early man, and learning about Old Divide Gorge, Louis Leakey, Richard Leakey, Mary Leakey, yada, 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 all that kind of stuff, And they mentioned Old Divide in there, and, and there's so much like mythology stuff, that's Zulu mythology throughout, and Zulu words, like, in the Scatterlings of Africa, they're saying, the beginnings start here, and we're on the road to Palamunga. And I had to learn what he meant by Palamunga. And it's sort of a reference to a time of no lies, of time of truth, sort of like a heaven. So humanity is sort of moving in that direction. So yeah, so that really solidified a lot of stuff for me. And because I had a huge interest in Africa, African culture, and especially South Africa, this one, and you see that, like, this is the third, last one, and this definitely would be near the top for me. It would be in the top 5 for sure if I did that. The rest sometimes will be floaters and going back and forth. But then, as I was saying, so I've got 3 things that are in the 80s here, but it's early 80s. I was quite disillusioned at the time through the 1980s with the music. I didn't like the music. I liked the early stuff, I like the new wave. I like some of the punk stuff, and then we went into new wave. But as the early 80s went into the mid 80s, I didn't like the music. But then something was happening around 1989, 1990, early 90s. Things started picking up for me music-wise. And the first one that really jumped out at me was a Canadian band from Toronto called Skydiggers, and it's their self-titled album Skydiggers, and that was in 1990. I don't know how many times I'd seen them, dozens and dozens. I'd gone, I've met everyone multiple times, having drinks with them, drinking beer with them. Just fabulous stuff. It's like really captured sort of for me what it felt like to be sort of that age at that time. And the harmonies of vocals of Andy Mays and Pete Cash. Pete Cash with his really low voice. And and John Flindelson on guitar, just was really great. And yeah, it was just a fabulous band. They're still going, but they never really got the respect that they deserved, I don't think. They did several other really great albums, and they've continued on doing really great stuff. They've gone more country, I guess, than anything. And people now look back on this album and call it country. To me, it was just very good rock and roll, at the time. But things change and attitudes change. But then the newest one, see, that was on CD. That was actually the first CD that I ever bought. I refused to buy CDs. But that was the very first CD that I bought. Because of them, after seeing them live, I bought the CD. I don't think it ever came out on vinyl. And then my last 10th one, am I right here? Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, do I have too many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. No, though I do have 10, and then the 11 with the imagine. Oh, I thought I miscounted. Okay, now we've got 1993. Now, this singer was on for my favorite singers. Everybody else is doing it, so why can't we? 1993, The Cranberries. That album just blew me away. Her voice blew me away. The emotion in her voice, the songs linger, pretty. It just on and on. Like there were times that I would have that on my CD player, just on repeat. And if I was doing something else or not reading or something like that, I'd let that play all day, just over and over and over again. I could still listen to it endlessly. Absolutely endlessly. And all these albums, I can listen to them endlessly. But yeah, so that's my top 10 albums. And I've actually got, like, there's potentially two more. I've actually made a list for top 10 soundtracks, like film soundtracks, and I'm trying to do something for lyricists, and that's proving quite difficult. But I'll see if I can get it done. But yeah, just going back to that idea of looking at the literary foundations or the literary beginnings of some albums. I wonder if anybody would be interested in that, um, and or anybody else, any other booktuber to do it. I'm sure Gareth at Book Songs and Other Magic would do something like that. Um, I put that out as a challenge, Gareth. If I don't do it, I'd like to see you do it. But yeah, if anybody would like me to see me do it, with some albums, well, it would be my albums of my choosing, I think, because it would have to be something I'd like, and look into it. But if anybody's interested in that, then please do sound out in the comments. And as always, let me know what you think of my choices here. As I say, I'm not saying these are the best albums, or yeah, the best albums of all time. They are the most favorite albums of mine. They are 10 albums. There are other albums that I can listen to over and over, but these are the ones that I distilled down, like the songs, like the singers, that I can really listen to endlessly. And it is strange that there's only two that, like, there's one that came from the songs and one for the singers. Um, I think that's it. Yeah, there's nothing else and no other singers on here, or other songs. And it's kind of weird that I find that. Like, you think, when I first started this, I thought, oh, this could be kind of boring because they're all going to be the same. The top 10 of each of these are going to be the same, but it turned out they're not. Anyway, let me know what you think, and I will talk to you later. Thank you, BookTube.